So I think that's everything from me. I'm delighted that I can welcome Dr. Jonny Bloomfield for his presentation today. Jonny, if you're able to unmute your microphone and your video. Hi there.
Good morning, Ashley.
Morning. I'm now going to stop my video and microphone, and I'll listen into the presentation, and we can do a Q&A at the end.
Super. Thanks so much. Well, good morning, everybody. I hope this finds you well this Wednesday morning, and you're all full of energy and enthusiasm as we edge towards the end of the year. What a year it has been, and of course I'm here to talk a little bit about energy and fatigue in particular. So it's kind of not lost on me, the type of year it's been. Exhaustion that we're all probably facing, and we're all looking forward to a bit of a break over the Christmas holidays, hopefully. So, but let me kick on. I'm going to try and make this talk hopefully energizing and hopefully informative and enjoyable. And by all means, I'll welcome any interaction and questions along the way that we have. So let's begin. So a little bit about me and my background. So I went through. I became a sports scientist in the first part of my career, and I worked for Ulster Rugby and for the Sports Institute here in Northern Ireland, and got to work with a lot of athletes and teams. And then I took a job with England Rugby, which was a really an excellent experience. Took me all over the world, and got to really get to grips with a high performance environment, and I thoroughly enjoyed that job. And then as I got a little bit older, I got a little fatigued with this role as well, and because it really wasn't conducive to a family life, and I then made a bit of a switch to start working with corporates in here in Northern Ireland, and started the company Support to Perform, and I work with organizations to help with their staff well-being, their resilience, and their productivity. So here I've done quite a bit of work with Graham over the last 4 years, and this was a significant milestone for us in December 18 when we were recognised by Investors in People with an inaugural Health and Wellbeing Excellence Award. An award we were shortlisted for again in November, so we didn't quite get it this year, but it was really nice to kind of be nominated once more for innovation work that we're doing, and how we're trying to improve their staff well-being and resilience. So this kind of leads us into the topic of today. It's almost like the buzzword of 2020. I've heard it so often. This we talk about fatigue in so many different contexts now. Hopefully none of you are yawning. It might, you might be that because we have these mirror neurons, and the statement that sloth breeds sloth is quite true. So when you see tiredness presented to you, you automatically will feel that tiredness too. But we've heard words like lockdown fatigue, COVID fatigue, and Zoom fatigue. So it's not the irony is not lost on me, as I say, that we're in another presentation again. But let's just keep going, keep persevering, because that's been the demand from this. Looking at the different types of fatigue, I was thinking about this, and obviously the two main types would be physical, mental, and then there's probably derivatives of the mental fatigue. But I think words associated physically, obviously you feel worn out, your body is tired, and you kind of have that physical signs and symptoms. The yawning we've just seen is one of those symptoms of physical tiredness. But I think this year's been a lot about mental fatigue, and we do feel generally tired, and this is really the onslaught and the challenge we faced day in day out with just coping with what we've had to deal with this year. So mentally we're tired, plus we're also tired because we don't necessarily know when the end point is. Listening this morning, it sounds like vaccines won't be rolled out for everybody for at least another year. So we are in an endurance trial here, and it is mentally taxing. Then we have cognitive fatigue. That's maybe a little bit more experienced on a daily basis in terms of how you think and how you make decisions and your judgment. So you can kind of like maybe be a bit more forgetful and clumsy sometimes with the cognitive fatigue. And then really the emotional fatigue is something that really I would relate to exhaustion. So it's dealing with everything here. It's maybe a combination of physical, mental, cognitive, behavioral, and the whole emotional baggage that we've had to carry through this. I've mentioned travel there. We've probably eased up a little bit on our travel fatigue, but I thought it was definitely one that I wanted to put on there, and that would be for those industries like construction, who have to be away from their homes, and you can get kind of battle weary from having to be away from home for long periods of time, just like I was with my sports. And in fact, sports would be one real obvious one where travel fatigue is prevalent. Cricket especially, where the guys would be maybe in hotel rooms for up to 80% of the year. Even when they're at home, they're in hotels and kind of looking at playing against touring teams. So there's a sense of never being at home. And then there's 2020 fatigue, the whole thing. So other things I've thought of there would be social distancing fatigue, the tiredness of having to be apart, and the homeschooling fatigue, the work from home fatigue, and actually maybe the homeowning fatigue, because we're in our homes for longer periods of the day. I don't know about yours, but mine with my two young children under 3, it is just constantly messy, and it's a constant. I require effort every day, at numerous times in the day, to keep on top of the household, to make sure it's tidy and obviously hygienic as well. So just keeping on top of the house is tough. Parental fatigue maybe as well in there. We're looking after 2 crazy little ones that are full of energy, and it's difficult to manage all that. So there's some types in terms of industries. I thought I'd come back and talk a little bit about sports, because fatigue and recovery are probably the 2 biggest buzzwords that are occurring in professional sports. We hear a lot of this talked about in the media. The match intensity has increased over the last 25 years, and games are very fast and physical. So there are higher risks involved with playing the game, because there's a higher physical demand, so there's higher physical fatigue. Therefore, there's higher demand for fatigue management and recovery. Then the fixture congestion. So the games are 2 or 3 days apart. Over Christmas period, it gets really crazy. That's why there's a demand or a request for a winter break, always every year. And then think about that travel fatigue in the European away games. So you could be playing in England on a Saturday, you're in Turkey on a Tuesday playing a game, or Tuesday or Wednesday, and then traveling back and playing again Saturday again. So it's very, very demanding, and can take a lot out of you. And then of course you have to endure the entire season, and then throw in international games that are in this as well. Some of the players will be South America, North America, Australia, Middle East. Maybe they've got longer haul travel to cope with. And then the whole media scrutiny this morning, the mental fatigue and the social media fatigue from constant pressures from that as well. So it's a heck of a fatigue fixture. But at the end of the day, they're all still human beings, and this all carries across into industry. So we look at statistics from HSE, and workplace fatigue obviously has high implication in regards to accidents, and very costly, very significant events, all down to the fact that fatigue results in people having slow reactions or reduced coordination, reduced ability to process that information. So this is really the cognitive fatigue I was mentioning a minute ago: memory lapses, absent-mindedness, decreased awareness, lack of attention. And I think that last one's incredibly significant, that underestimation of risk. In fact, in America, they do a lot of this. A lot of research and studies have been done in looking at the fatigue and safety. And Here we go. Research from the US Department of Travel reveals a railroad operator is more likely to get into an accident, and on average a 5 times more costly accident, when they present with high fatigue. In terms of like where fatigue comes from, well, huge variety of sources, to be truthful. So we've got lots of different types, but lots of different sources. A blood test can be a handy source of diagnosing some of those sources, such as maybe it's anemia, thyroid, liver, maybe it's diabetes, kidney disorders, female hormones, testosterone, ferritin levels, vitamin D, vitamin B12. There even a urinary tract infection. They can all be sources of fatigue. So then we have the viral. So if you have a virus, we've already know about long COVID, but there's post-viral fatigue. They can last for weeks and months even, and then the various medications that could be taken for could have fatiguing side effects as well. Then we have the sleep. I've highlighted apnea as one because it's a silent sleep disorder that often goes unmissed and undiagnosed. So it needs to be measured or diagnosed through a home sleep study here. And as you can see in the picture, using an apparatus that's measuring your breathing rate. And but if a person's really feeling unrefreshed in the morning and very sleepy in the afternoon, then there's probably a chance of apnea, particularly if they're a larger person, or if they have a bed partner that complains about the noises they make, or the fact that they notice they're not breathing much during the night. It's also linked with high blood pressure, heart conditions, and depression as well. So there can be a lot of signs and symptoms that you can spot that can lead to a potential apnea diagnosis. But there's lots of, even generally poor sleep, but other sleeping disorders like insomnia can also be big causes of fatigue. SAD, seasonal affective disorder. I don't know about you, I'm starting to feel it a little bit more this year than normal. It's that lack of daylight or the sort of increase of darkness maybe that can just start to make us feel a bit more tired and sluggish. And then diet as well. So diet's really big one. It's poor nutrition and even food intolerances that lead to inflammation. They're gonna lead to fatigue and side effects. We want to avoid sugar and high refined carbs that have those insulin spikes and lows, and then also the caffeine. Caffeine can lead to a real fatigue chase. Needing more caffeine to keep alert, keep energized, and suddenly you're depending on it. Alcohol as well. Alcohol is kind of seen as a way to kind of relax, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But alcohol leads ultimately to poor sleep and subsequent fatigue. Other conditions like having a regular heartbeat or having a lung condition, they can all be inducers of more fatigue or sources of fatigue. Then, as well as having general aches and pains, this might be linked to autoimmune diseases like fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome, otherwise known as ME. But there's two more here. We've got hydration. So hopefully you've got your bottle of water handy and you're sipping away at water, even though it's winter, and you recognize the fact that hydration is linked to mental fatigue, and then ultimately that last one, probably the biggest one we'll focus on for the majority of this talk, is that volume of the load, the volume of work, or the types of work, the intensity of it, the impact that it might bring with regard to moods and anxieties. Exercise load, also important. We can overdo it on our exercise. And think of our family loads. I've got 2 young children that require an awful lot of energy outside the boundaries of work. But some people will have the sandwich generation will also have the older parents to look after as well, and it can really stretch. Then obviously financial load, I think, is the last one I can think of here. So there's a heck of a lot that can tire us out. This is a really significant study that I came across when I was working as a sports scientist, and this really piqued my interest regarding the value of sleep for athletes. And and the risk that they could have regarding injury, something that we all want to try and do our best to avoid. And this was a study done by the US Army. It was a sleep restriction study, so we had 3 groups that slept in different quantities for 2 weeks. So we have a group 1, 8 hours sleep, which would have been a group I would have liked to have been in. Then 6 hours sleep with the yellow line, and 4 hours sleep with the red line. So you can see that the guy behind us is he's got a psychomotor vigilance task, which is asking him to respond to a light. So it's measuring maybe reaction speed, or it's decision making, or so it's ultimately it's assessing his cognitive fatigue. And you can see on the left hand side here the vigilance lapses that this person had, or these people had over the period of time, is quite exponential. So the red line would be showing more mistakes as each day goes on. It's same with the yellow. Even the green makes mistakes, but it's but they're minimal. On the right hand side, though, we see this is their self-reported sleepiness level. So after about 2 days, you can see the curve flattens out. I've heard a lot of that this year. So after about 2 or 3 days of severe sleep deprivation, there's no more tiredness to really have. You're just generally exhausted from that point. And you then just get used to that. You get used to feeling tired all the time, and you kind of accept that that's what life is like, and you carry on with that way, and you don't necessarily adjust any other behaviors around it, because there's no, you've hit rock bottom. There's no feeling worse. But on the left hand side, you see your risk to yourself and your danger could potentially be increasing day on day. So we get biologically renormalized to this. So this study was really behind looking at mission sensitive or safety sensitive type work or missions by the US Army, making sure that whenever they put a human being into a position, they would minimize the risk of things going wrong or mistakes being made. And it led to the creation of an algorithm or a fatigue prediction model known as safety. And they related it back to sort of blood alcohol equivalence. So we know that if you're awake for 17 hours, you're now at the same equivalent of 0.05 on a BIC scale, which would be a drink driving ban in Scotland. And then if you stay awake for 21 hours, then you can reach that 0.08 level. So like a person who's intoxicated, they still take the risk to get into the car. There's that underestimation of risk that I mentioned. It's exactly the same thing with a person who is highly fatigued. They don't recognize that fatigue, and they will take the risk. So this is what the model looks like. So I don't want to go through it really, but I just want to highlight, like, there's a lot of complex mechanisms that go into this model, and it looks at a person's sleep history. So it needs a bank of data, and then it looks at the circadian factors and the season, the time of year it is, and then sleep inertia, so that it's going to sleep phase and coming out of sleep phase as well. And then they created this kind of model that can be used. So the safety model needs sleep data entered into it, and then it calculates a score, which is like a percentage. So you can see the scale here is about like a thermometer from 100 down to 50. So whenever you reach a scale of 70, so you're not sleeping enough, or your quality is not good enough, or it's the pattern of sleep isn't good enough, then you are reaching that 0.08 level of impairment. So you're 5 times more likely to make that risk, as we saw in the Department of Transport comment a few slides back. So there's validated studies, but there's also some real world industrial data as well, based on telematics. This is mining industry. So a lot of the industries that are picking up and using this would be, well, sports for one, but then kind of oil, gas, and mining, those kind of heavy industries. whereby the telematics of the vehicles will tell you how the operator is using it. In-cab video to look at maybe micro sleeps or sort of the moments of concentration, and then recorded incidents as well. So you can see that when a person is, say, 85% and above, that they're performing reasonably well. But whenever they get that fatigue impairment of 70 or below, that you can really start to see on the right hand side here, like the dig rate goes down, spot time, micro sleeps, accident costs, harsh braking, and speeding also massively increases. So I thought I'd share that with you because that's quite interesting. Hopefully interesting for this group as well. So I've had experience using it. This was one of the first projects I did coming out of sports and into industry, where I looked at shift work analysis for Transport for London, and it was looking at a lot of workers built on this project, which was a 24-hour project, and we took into account people's commute times, and we measured everybody's sleep and over a lengthy period of time, and how they adjusted to different shift patterns, and TfL were able to optimize their shift patterns, and they had a reduced sick day. They were able to reduce their sick days by 30% just based on schedule optimization. So again, I just thought that was of interest to everybody here. Then in terms of this year, a little bit about sleep. So we're actually sleeping probably more than we've done before, because we can knock away our commute. So the alarm clock doesn't have to go off at its usual time anymore. However, the quality of sleep has seemed to reduce significantly, particularly for certain groups like women, younger people, and anyone facing financial difficulties, of course. So we're in bed a little longer, but we're tossing and turning maybe a little bit more. And I think people are those people who have extended the sleep and maybe not had the dip in quality, have really noticed the benefits of gaining that extra bit of time in bed, and this year's given us the opportunity to recognize that and appreciate it. Because of course, employees who sleep less than 6 hours a night, they lose around 6 more working days through absenteeism and presenteeism every year than those who sleep simply 7 to 9 hours a night. And we know that also sleeping 6 hours a night can rapidly increase your risk of heart attack or stroke, or in fact any cardiovascular event at some point later in your life. Just generally, sleeping less than 7 hours is not a great thing to be doing. Life just starts to get a little bit more difficult. So here's some very simple tasks, like concentrating or working on a hobby or taking public transport even. Then everything here, the darker blue is the people who sleep less than 7 hours a night. The lighter blue would be someone who's sleeping the appropriate amount between 7 and 9, and suddenly just life gets a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to perform generally everyday tasks. Also, this is something interesting. This is by 2015. This research came out. In fact, I'm sorry. This is more recent. This is, I think, 2017, and it's looking at how we pick up emotional cues and facial cues. So you can see the 6 faces here, and 5 are very, very obvious that the different emotions that they're experiencing. Now, when we suffer sleep deprivation, we can still pick up and understand those sort of extreme emotions. But at the top left, one is the one that we find more and more difficult to read. So it's a neutral expression, but when we're tired, we'll default ourselves into a kind of our safety zone. We'll see that expression potentially as a threat, and we will react towards that threat, maybe negatively. So there's no real emotion that you can instantly tell with that, but the default would be towards the negative, and to look after yourself, I suppose. Now, time of day, as I said in the notes, time of day is really, really important, and it plays a kind of significant role. So in terms of our alertness and our functioning. So here we have, and it's known as our circadian rhythm, or our body clock, really. So you can see that these blue arrows would represent kind of our alertness levels throughout the day, and roughly around about 10 o'clock. So maybe about now, we're all alert and ready, listening, tuned in, and able to take in information quite well. And then later on this afternoon, maybe at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, you have another wave of alertness and energy burst. And maybe after lunch, you'll have that mid-afternoon low, whenever you'll feel a little bit more tired. And that's just a natural biological rhythm that we have throughout every 24 hours. Whenever we are sleep deprived and feel kind of really tired, you see this blue line, it will overlap the sleep urge orange line here quite a lot, quite noticeably. And then we'll have physical symptoms of fatigue, like yawning and rubbing our eyes and feeling like we maybe want to go for a nap. And that's just a natural consequence. Now we control and regulate our biological rhythm through our environment. We're human beings on planet Earth, and planet Earth gives us loads of sort of environmental cues, like natural light being our strongest cue for regulation of our biorhythm. Also, physical activity is a great way to help control this. So, being active. I've heard of the expression now, fake commuting. So if you're working from home, you actually take a 10-minute walk at 10 to 9 before you start to do your tasks. Just walk around the block and back to your front door so that you can get some daylight, some fresh air, some exercise, 10 minutes of your physical activity for the day. And then again, do that same fake commute at the end of the day as well, maybe to reflect or just to unwind. And try not to bounce from bedroom to office to straight into work tasks, and try and be more physically active. Food as well, so having set meal times and having rhythm there in your food will also control this biorhythm, and general temperature as well, so making sure that you start to cool the house towards the end of the evening, so don't have your heat blaring too long, too late. Cooling is important to help you turn over to get to sleep. And then circadian rhythm. So we've seen this. So in the night we have this is a bit of a chart to appreciate all the different things that happen through the day. It's kind of confirming what I've just been talking about. In the morning we have peak alertness, a rise in testosterone, and then after lunch we have more prowess in our physical capacity, so coordination, reaction time, cardiovascular efficiency, muscle strength. And at 9 o'clock, you'll see melatonin start to secrete. So that's our sleep hormone, building up the sleep drive, and then into bed. And when we get into bed, in fact, but however, that we're not all on the same sleep-wake cycle. Some of us we're all of different chronotypes. And some of us will be dolphins, some of us will be lions, some of us will be bears, and some of us will be wolves. So the dolphins amongst us will have challenges with their sleep. They'll be light sleepers. They'll feel often sleep deprived and carry lots of fatigue. The lions are the morning people who have lots of energy and get lots of tasks done first thing, but they'll flag early evening. The bears are the ones who kind of will follow the circadian patterns we've just been looking at. They follow this natural solar cycle, and then the wolves are the people who like to come out at night, and they just detest the morning. They struggle to get out of bed. So we're going to give you guys a chance to find out what chronotype you are, just by this short quiz. So if you want to grab a pencil and just read the statements and then answer them true or false to begin with. So I'll take a pause here and just let you do this, and then just skip on. I'll do it as if I was doing it myself. Okay, so if you've marked 5 statements or more true, then you can finish. And if you've done less than that, you have to answer the next 10. So this time it's 10 questions with answers A, B, and C, and you score them 1 point, 2 points, or 3 points. So you're going to add up your points total. Okay, skipping the next one. And a last set. Okay, now you add up your score. So it should be a total out of 30. And here we go. So if you have 5 truths, then you're a dolphin. 10 to 16, it means that you're a lion. 17 to 23 is a bear. The majority of the people on the group call that expect to be bears. And then some of you are wolves. So the next 4 slides are typical days or suggested ideal days that you could have to follow your natural biorhythm. And if you want to maybe take a screenshot of them as we go through. So I'm not going to read them out. I'm just going to give a couple of seconds pause on each so that you can grab a screen. And again, and if need to, I can come back to these at the end of the presentation. Grab a screenshot. Grab a screenshot. Okay. In terms of actually what goes on through the night, we've heard that we need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. There's a lot of magic happens through the night that it's quite an incredible process. But of course, we tend not to think too much about it. It's a bit like breathing; it just happens. We've been doing this since day one since we were born. But we'll sleep a third of our lives, so there's a real significant part of the day and part of our lives is dedicated towards this process. So it is essential, very, very important. However, we're kind of, because we don't have an experience of it, then we don't tend to give it maybe enough attention. But recent years, certainly that attitude has been changing. But we know that in the first well, there are different stages of sleep, and there are about 5 to 6 cycles of sleep that we go through the night. But the first 4 hours is dedicated mostly to the physical repair of the body. So we'll regulate our blood pressure, our kind of cardiovascular system will repair and regenerate itself, and then our immune function and our muscles and bones, everything will happen through that first 4 hours of the night on a physical sense. Then the second half of the night, you can see that the REM phases, which is where the brain activity is more active than any part of the waking day. Then this is where the body's cognitive processes will be doing their magical things. So the memory, the emotional regulation, the reasoning and remembering will occur throughout these blocks. and they're more frequent and they're more lengthy throughout the end of the night. This is where we'll have those kind of vivid dreams that we've been having through lockdown. We're trying to make sense of all this weirdness and change, and we'll come up with all these strange images in our heads to try and make sense of it. So the second half is for that cognitive restoration of and mental repair. So there's an entire process here of 8 hours that's kind of an important lengthy process to respect. So it could be anywhere between 7 and 9 for each individual. So there's not a magic number to try and reach for. It's your own personal number that you want to make sure you get. So 7 to 9 hours, but the key part of the day, the most important moment in the day is when you wake up and how you feel when you wake up. And do you feel refreshed? Are you feeling like you can overcome your sleep inertia and get up within, say, 5 or 10 minutes without needing more sleep? That need for more sleep is telling you something. Then, of course, it's a consistency of when you wake up and then working back to knowing your quantity and going to bed at that time, and then giving yourself 60 minutes prior to that to really unwind and prepare for that bedtime. So you need to dedicate a good 10 or 11 hours of your day towards rest, recovery, and replenishment. So if you think about your 168, does it look a little bit like this? So during the Monday to Thursday, you're on a shorter sleep wake cycle, and then Friday you're trying to catch it back. Saturday you're having a big nice long lie-in because there's no need to get up, and then coming back to Sunday, get that time sort of normal 7. So this is not really encouraged, because there's no such thing as catch-up sleep. As we saw in sleep architecture, we have to go through the full process again and again. Once it's gone, it's gone. There's not a bit that we can just fill like a reservoir that we can just top back up. The 9 and the 10 here are probably suggesting that there's sleep deprivation, and the demand for sleep is increased, but the process is here that we're losing them every time we're committing to shorter sleep. So the other two key components towards controlling our sleep would be, we've mentioned the circadian rhythm, but we then have the sleep pressure system, and it's how we expend our energy both physically and mentally throughout the day. And a chemical called adenosine will build up across these orange arrows here throughout the day, and we'll get to a point where we need to kind of pull the plug and start to let it drain it away from us. And the longer we stay up, the more mental and physical energy we expend, the steeper that curve will climb. Napping can be useful to relieve some of this pressure, but you have to be cautious about the timing of the nap and the duration of the nap. So ideally, it would be about 12 hours from the midpoint of the overnight sleep, so somewhere in the afternoon really, and for up to sort of no more than 20 minutes would be advisable. So the final system that controls this would be our stress and recovery system. So through the day, we'll experience our stress, our workload, or the load of life, and then we have the recovery period that needs us to recharge that battery. And it's here where I see the majority of our imbalance, because the stress load is simply too high, too intense, and it's robbing us a little bit of the opportunity to recover, and then our recovery strength is not strong enough to repair completely from the opportunity it's provided. So at this point, maybe we'll take a kind of little bit of a pause before going in. Ashley, is there anything coming through from the group yet? And we can all just have a tiny break.
I don't think there's questions there at the moment. I'm just going to have a little look at the Q&A. Nothing there, and nothing in the chat function just at the moment. We'll maybe get a few more coming up at the end. Okay,
maybe everyone's falling asleep, which is probably not a bad outcome from this talk. So,
there is something in the Q&A. Just a second, I'll have a look. Someone has asked a question to say, what about shift workers, night and day?
Yeah, obviously shift work is a shift works actively work against their natural body clock and can really struggle, particularly if you think back to the chronotypes that we had a while ago. So some of the chronotypes might be more suited, might be more advantaged towards shift work, like maybe maybe the wolves, but each individual will either adjust or not adjust well to the impact of shift work. You know, a person who can't do it just shouldn't persevere it. It's not a suitable style of living really for them, because there's huge health consequences from shift work if you're not able to cope and tolerate with it. And then of course you've got the other baggage of life as well that comes with that shift work. So there might be more demands around that shift worker that can make it even more challenging. But yes, certainly from observing the shift work pattern analysis that I did for TFL, there's some people that suit it, some people really don't, but there's always going to be risk whenever you have shift works, a shift work pattern. People will function better at different times of the day than other times. We have our adrenal system will kick in and help us get through moments where we're really required to perform, like an A&E or in surgery. You know, whenever it's the middle of the night and something needs to happen, our adrenal system will give us that burst of energy for a short period. But to endure a lengthy shift, peak alertness would be really unrealistic to expect. Okay, so I'll keep going here with a wee bit about stress. So I feel that as I mentioned there, the stress and recovery system is one of the things that we can maybe do most about, and stress of course impacts all of us and in many different ways. So whenever we have this too much stress, it generates fatigue, and it leads to us under recovering perhaps. So not necessarily chronic overload of stress, but maybe chronic under recovery. So we don't repair enough from it, and we generate just accumulate fatigue after day, or this could be month after month or year after year that this chart could represent. And eventually that will hit a point where it's just too much, and burnout or like a stress-related illness or other health event may be the consequence. But of course, we get about by replacing the word stress with busy. And when you're asked, how are you? You might reply with, yeah, I'm busy. And you probably will then qualify that very quickly by saying, oh, but don't worry, it's good busy. I'm good busy. It's fine. And that's something I catch myself saying an awful lot, and I hear it back a huge amount as well. But really, stress is just busy is just an alternative word for stress. Because if you went around saying I'm really stressed, but don't worry, it's good stress, I'm not sure that people will be kind of concerned about you a little bit. But we get away with it whenever we just substitute it with the word busy. It's society's views. Of course, each of us will determine stress in different ways. Some of us will see stress as beneficial, like the same event might be seen great for one person and seen as really distressing for another. Maybe an obvious example here might be sitting in a traffic jam and being late. One person will see that as an opportunity to kind of catch the breath and just accept the situation, and another person will get very angry and frustrated and experience more distress from that same situation. So we all have different life experiences. We all interpret life in different ways. So not everyone's stress is the same, and we should all be conscious towards that. But however, physiologically, it is quite similar. So whenever we get see a stimulus, we'll get a nerve impulse towards our adrenal glands. We'll have a rush of adrenaline, and then a rise in heart rate, a rise in energy availability, the shutdown of things like your digestive system and reproductive system, because they're not essential to be functioning at that point. We'll get a rise in high blood pressure, and we'll get like a shorter, sharper breath. And this will lead to these surge of adrenalines leads to the production of cortisol, which is the primary stress hormone. But however, the long-term activation of this stress hormone and the overexposure of it can and various other stress hormones can lead to a disruption of almost all the body's natural processes. And this puts us at risk of very many health problems. So it's really important to recognize that stress, recognize the volume of stress that you're experiencing, and how to manage it and regulate it. That's why I'm here to talk about it a little bit today. Signs of too much. Well, first and foremost, you'll certainly see it show up in terms of your sleep and sleep problems, but other things like physical pain, frequent illnesses, more prone to infections, problems with your gut and your digestion, how you interact with food, whether it's going off your food or you emotionally eat to relieve stress. Then you have increases in like blood pressure, heart symptoms, weight recovery, chronic fatigue. Then on the right-hand side, we see the mood changes for the psychological symptoms. So people get very impatient and very short attention. They have lack of motivation, more anxious, very irritable and restless, and they might lean towards more use of stimulants like alcohol or drugs. So we want to be cautious of signs of changes in behavior in particular, and look out for these sort of obvious telltale signs. Then we have different durations of stress. So like I said, when that person rushes into A&E, we've got maybe an acute stress moment here where adrenaline surge to deal with the thing and the issue in hand. But then we have like episodic stresses, which might be, say, for example, a school teacher having to deliver class after class, maybe 8 classes in a day. So it's that wave of acute spikes that are needed to kind of get through the day, and that leads to exhaustion towards the end of a period of episodes of acute stress, needing to perform again and again. And then the chronic stress is that ever present, always there. So it's in work, it's outside work, it's helping you, it's making you lose sleep, and that's the very dangerous stress, which can really lead to severe health problems. So if you've got chronic stress, then it's certainly or chronic busyness, then you should consider making some changes to redress that balance. Something here from the NHS website, I'm just sharing some of the don'ts to better stress manage. So I think don't try to achieve everything all at once, and setting that small and realistic targets that so you can achieve easily. So managing your expectations, maybe considering even your own ambition, and it's the achievability of it is maybe something to always reflect on. Focusing on things you can't change is a pointless exercise. Any sort of resistance towards what the government are doing is just futile, and it's better to comply than to act against, because you're just adding more stress to a stressful situation. Try not to tell yourself you're alone. So reaching out for help, talk to people, and share the load, and look for support. Look for anything you can, any help that's available. And then obviously try not to lean on crutches like alcohol or cigarettes or gambling to kind of relieve and distract and take you away from the stress. There are more healthier options to do than this. Also the battery drainers. So these are the pro-inflammatory type foods that's going to add more stress. This is not going to ease our fatigue symptoms in any way. They're temporary relieving, but they will lead to more calories required, They will lead to higher inflammation, particularly in the digestive system, and this is also a form of stress. So the body has to cope and tolerate with this. So things like we heard of earlier, I was talking about the caffeine chase and the alcohol as well. Because alcohol is a toxin which needs processed through the blood and away through the liver. And this kind of food can be really unhelpful regarding your energy balance and energy sustainability. Also your mindset. So there's some evidence here to show that if you can see your stress in a more positive light, like you can see the benefits, maybe look ahead 4 or 5 years and think how we'll think back to this year, and can we take what positives can we take from it. We can have a 23% drop in negative side effects of stress if we can see the benefit from it. In fact, the learning is seen as an excellent buffer for stress, and it can be very enhancing towards how we cope. So really encourage you to try to do that. Also, same kind of source from the NHS. We looked at the avoids. Now that's maybe focusing on the 10 tips to really help you manage that. So being active, and one of the Zeek Geibers that we looked at in terms of controlling the body clock, and being active outdoors for me would probably be the better description there. Taking control, connecting with people, setting aside some me time, that's 60 minutes or 90 minutes prior to bedtime to help you switch off, disengage, unwind. Incredibly important. Be challenged, but in the right way, I think, so that you've got a reason to get out of bed, something that you look forward to and gives you energy in the morning, and your life is full of purpose and challenge. Then avoiding those bad habits, probably we've looked at those a minute ago. Then offering your help and giving out your help to others is seen as a great thing to do to help your own self-esteem. Working smarter, so not because we've lost our commute, that doesn't mean we add 2 hours to our working day. We want to try to keep our productivity as high as we can, but not at the expense of our time necessarily. Keeping positive, as I mentioned, and accepting those things that you cannot change, and controlling the controllables. Whew. How are we doing, everybody? We're going to go into chat about recovery now, the real stuff that helps us build a bit of fatigue resistance, and this is the good stuff we all need to stay sustainable, to stay healthy, and to ultimately maintain our productivity throughout the rest of this year and for many more years beyond. So any questions coming in, Ashley, or shall I keep plugging away?
Nothing else just in at the moment.
Okay. So here we go. This is the concept here. So we want to try and build some fatigue resistance or stress resilience in our lives. So when we encounter stress, we accept that that's going to generate fatigue. But here it is. It's that opportunity to recover. That's so key. This is what all the sports teams look to try and do. It's quantifying fatigue, understanding, managing it, by then providing the optimizing and providing the resources needed for optimal recovery. So this builds our strength. This builds an adaptation. We get stronger. We get more resilient and robust, and we get better able to tolerate higher amounts of stress. And this curve goes up and up. Earlier, we saw that whenever we marginalize our recovery, we encounter a stress fatigue accumulation over whatever period of time, and we lead towards that burnout. So this is now taking the graph in a different direction. But on a day-to-day basis, we want to try and have that even balance between stress and recovery. This leads to us having a fully charged and available battery. And then we keep balanced and sustainable. So this is kind of the mission that we want to try and achieve. From observation, from some self-experience as well, really, it's when we marginalize that recovery, we have a drained battery. We feel really squeezed and exhausted all the time. But remember back to the US Army's research was telling us that we get used to this feeling, and we just drive ourselves through it, and we keep going until suddenly maybe an event, like a life event, stops us in our tracks. We hear of many people finishing their careers and not living too much longer beyond that, because of a life of this kind of balance. I want to just highlight we have an autonomic nervous system that is controlling this balance between our stress and recovery. So we have two branches, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, and these control kind of the adrenaline and the cortisol on the left hand side, that fight and flight activation, and then we have the rest and digest on the right hand side here, so the replenishment from that. And these two systems are constantly regulating what our bodies. Every time we breathe in and out, we are experiencing whether we activate or rest and digest. And the vagus nerve is the nerve that's controlling all of this. And to simply activate our recovery system, we just pause and take a few deep breaths, and this will start to ignite the parasympathetic nervous system and help us to gain a bit more balance. And we can actually measure this as well through a process called heart rate variability. So we track your heart rate, and then we look at the gaps that are between your heartbeats, and measuring the time differences between those beats will tell us whether you're in sympathetic or parasympathetic measure or styles or heartbeats, really. And this gives us this HRV. So this is a tool that I've used a lot over the last 4 or 5 years. I brought it across from sports. We measured it with athletes, and now I do a lot of work with kind of management teams measuring their HRVs. And I just wanted to bring some common insights that I have. So they would wear this monitor, tracking their heartbeat for 5 days and nights, from normally a Thursday to a Tuesday. And it generates this kind of report. So this is a 24-hour period. We see red is sympathetic and being activated, so we call that stress. The taller bars would represent more intense stress periods. So nothing really too intense here, but it's and the light blue here would be physical activity or light activity, and the green here is when they're fast asleep and into that parasympathetic and the recharge. So there's quite a healthy stress balance within this person's chart. It's pretty good sustainable day we're seeing. But I mentioned about alcohol, and alcohol really does destroy sleep, take away the recovery, and this is what leads us to feeling exhausted the following day after we've had some alcohol. So you can see the same person, a day without alcohol and a day with alcohol with significant amount, 12 units. So you can see at the end of the day here, the sleep period's non-existent, the recovery period is non-existent, the heart rate is much higher, and the body is remaining in a stressful state throughout the night. And we see this all the time with people who take alcohol. Now, different sizes of people, different fitness levels of people, it kind of will alter, will change. Different quantities of alcohol and the timing of alcohol will also have an impact here. Screen time, we've heard a lot about screen time and sleep, but here's some evidence to show, like, well, how does it disrupt it? And I think not only is it to do with the light that we all kind of hear about first and foremost, I feel it's a lot more to do with the contents, the busyness of the brain from reading the content and reacting to it and thinking about it and considering what's happening next and so on. That's probably for me a bit more worse, because it activates us. Watching TV before bed, don't watch TV in bed, but you want to try and choose your programs carefully. So the same person watching two different programs, Game of Thrones here on the left showing activation and a bit of excitement leading into bed, and a bit more a bit more compromised recovery from it, whereas it's a disengaging type program, Blue Planet, that's going to promote recovery prior to bedtime and maybe much better sleep throughout the night. So choose your programs carefully. Caffeine. So, caffeine can lead to that chase. So person taking on too much caffeine, too much load, and maybe too late on, and it's leading to this compromised recovery state throughout the night, delayed and broken recovery. Exercise obviously a really good thing, because not only can exercise give you better stress tolerance, it also can boost how well and how strong you recover. But if you time it incorrectly, this is a person playing five-side football at 9 o'clock, and their body is just wired up for several hours from very high intensity, too close to bedtime here, and it takes until 5 in the morning before the recovery even starts to show. And then finally, just here, inflammation. So this is a person who felt unwell, but I've seen the same whenever you have sort of food intolerances. So the gut really reacting strongly against what's gone in there. So that can also have a massive impact. So poor nutrition or illness or infection can have this kind of rebounding effect as well. It's quite aggressive. And ideally, you want to try to build this up over time, having enough energy out and replacement, and create that alpine chart for a better, stronger, more sustainable battery. I saw a couple of questions come in there, actually. It's maybe a moment to pause.
Hi, yes, we have had some questions in, actually. I will just run through them. So there's one there, for a balanced sleep, what would be the ideal percentage set against REM, light sleep, deep sleep? What about awake time during the night? Can this be considered a problem?
So in terms of awakening through the night, that's perfectly normal. So each REM phase, we have subconscious awakenings. We can have up to 10 subconscious awakenings through the night. And we just don't have any acknowledgement of them. But sometimes, particularly maybe the dolphins among us, would have more disturbances and awakenings whenever we're asleep, whenever we're through the night. It's when those awakenings get more extended and you can't return back to sleep. So in the occasions where we have to go up and get to use the bathroom, and we get back over to sleep, it has no real issues or problems with doing that. But whenever we have the inability to get back to sleep, that's kind of following an insomnia pattern, and can be problematic, and it's often linked to anxiety and frustration from not being able to go back to sleep. So yes, so answering that question, waking up in the night is no problem. I think it's the concern would be waking up and not getting back to sleep and losing a lot of sleep. So, and particularly the advice in that circumstance is, if you see that happening, you would avoid, you'd want to avoid forcing sleep to happen and trying really hard to sleep, because that is never going to work. The best thing to do is to accept it and to do a bedroom reset. So you would exit the bed after, say, you've tried for 15 minutes or something, and it's not happening. Then exit the bed, take yourself downstairs to a separate room, stay at a cool temperature, do something boring, read a book, even watch TV as long as it's not stimulating, and wait for the next period of sleepiness to occur. So that might be 40 minutes away, or maybe longer, maybe an hour away. So in some circumstances, it might be shorter, but it's really having a reset where you go, okay, well, I'll try again. But the last thing you want to generate is a negative association with the bedroom and struggling to sleep, because that's whenever there's the fear of sleep and the anxiety of sleep really does take over. And every night, an insomnia can tell you that they're fearful of what's in store. They're worried about what impact this is going to have. Clock watching is another terrible thing, where you start to do the mathematics around how much sleep is being lost. How am I going to cope? And your brain will start to get really busy around that. So keeping the bedroom, having less negativity around less negativity associated with the bedroom, so that you have a really good positive relationship with your bed and your bedroom, that it's a good place to go to sleep. And when you struggle to sleep, it's avoiding getting caught in the trap of having this strong frustrations about it, and being unable to or to experience this on a nightly basis. In terms of the breakdown, it's really between an hour and up to 2 hours of deep sleep, and about 2 hours of REM is normally typical. So 4 hours of light would be 4 to 5 hours of light. In fact, would be the common breakdown, really.
And there's a similar question there, actually. Someone has asked, out of interest, how accurate do you think sleep tracking devices such as Fitbits and smartwatches are?
Yeah, there's definitely different levels of accuracy. And then but to treat them to treat sleep trackers as say gold standard or lab quality would be a mistake. I think there's some that track them really quite well. There's these companies work hard to evidence this, but there's also the latest sleep disorder that is circulating is called sleep orthosomnia, and that is whenever a person is studying their sleep tracking figures and getting rather anxious about them. And this is leading to more sleep disturbances and visits to the doctor to show their sleep quality or their activity tracker data, to say this isn't this is what my device is telling me. What's important is actually, again, how you feel when you wake up. Do you feel refreshed? Do you have energy through the day? Are you feeling sleepiness, symptoms of sleepiness through the day? And in the circumstance where you've got you're studying your sleep to the point of anxiety, then it's best to remove that anxiety and don't track it, and just follow the fatigue markers, really follow those subjective fatigue markers around how you feel in the morning and how you function through the day, and try not to worry so much.
Yeah, so you can get caught up a little bit in looking at the information if you have it available on a device like that.
Entirely.
There is another question there on the topic of exercise, and if there's a time before which you should try and exercise in the evening. A bit about a puddle.
Yeah, so again, depending a little bit on your chronotype and those screenshots that I sent around, they would give you some exercise advice, but morning ideally is great. We don't always have time to get out and do morning exercise, but a real good way to do your 30 minutes a day would be to have that fake commute at the start and the end, so the 2 10s for just simply a walk, and then a walk at lunchtime for 10 or more minutes would be another good one. And it's giving you 3 good, well, certainly 2 at this time of year, 2 good light exposures and some fresh air, some daylight, and some mental relief as well, because you're outside and you're hopefully close to some sort of nature and hearing the sights, seeing the sights, and hearing the sounds. In terms of high intensity, I would say there's a general rule of thumb around 3 hours prior to bedtime. So probably up to about 8 o'clock at night if you want to get to bed, if you want to be asleep before 11 for any high, hard, vigorous type intense work too. So, ideally, after work, 5 to 6 o'clock is a good time, or that lunchtime slot if you've got capacity to do that, or even first thing in the morning for any high intensity type work, and not too close to bedtime, as we've seen in the recovery chart a few slides back. This is again another real struggle for those football teams who will be kicking off at 9 o'clock European time and finishing up high intensity at 11 p.m. and they don't sleep until 2 or 3 in the morning, so they travel back in the night anyway, because there's no point in getting in a hotel where you don't sleep. So they'll choose to travel, so they'll have very poor quality sleep and they'll be into their own beds 4 or 5 in the morning, but their then circadian system will still alert them and awake them at usual time. So 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning will be the natural wake time again. So it's that travel fatigue is for them is pretty bad. Um,
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say there's a question there regarding estimated oxygen variation during sleep time, and the person who asked it wanted to know what a high variation indicates, if you would know.
Well, that oxygen uptake through the night would be linked to sleep apnea. So a person who has low oxygen uptake throughout the night would be potentially at risk of sleep apnea and the outcomes from that. So it would be good to get diagnosed and maybe be put onto a CPAP, which would be supporting the oxygen throughout the night. And when we go to bed, this green appears through the night whenever we are sort of having slower heart rates, slower, deeper breaths, or more oxygen in our blood, and lower blood pressure as well. So an absence of parasympathetic activity through the night would be, again, another stress marker, really. So you should experience higher fatigue from lower oxygen consumption through the night.
Yeah. Okay, and the last of the ones that we have there at the moment is whether or not you could give some tips on developing a stress management plan for employees who are struggling with a work-life balance. So in particular, employees with a busy home life that struggle with fatigue, which has then an impact on their work life and productivity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I'm thinking there's a lot of stuff we've done with Graham on based on this precise thing. So I think when you focus it, even just the language around it as well. If you call it a stress management plan, it's already challenged to get it engagement and uplift on it. So same would apply when you call it the health and well-being one. So I use better languages around performance, productivity, resilience. Those are buzzwords that people tend to buy into a little bit more, a little bit more easier. So, but it's exactly the same thing that you're trying to achieve. This year for Graham 21, we're releasing a program called Control the Controllables. So staff will be presented with a list of options and opportunities, different programs. So there'll be some related to mental well-being, some will be related to physical, and some will be related to maybe health. And they will be able to have a choice in confidence to join one of those programs, and then they can engage with that program in their own style, in their own time, and follow some good advice and get some good direction on a topic or an area that's motivating them to improve. So that's what's ahead. What we've done recently with Graham and has led to creating a product for Support to Perform is a physical challenge. So I think one of the best ways to impact stress and fatigue is through the physical activity channel, because it has huge impacts on health and resilience and mental well-being all in one go. So we're really proud of a program I've designed. A lot of businesses will be adopting things like step tracking, but there's a lot of benefits towards that, and a lot of but it's not a fantastic solution for everyone in the business, and it can have a lot of negatives as well. So we've created an alternative offering which centers much more around doing activities, so things like walking or hiking or running, cycling, swimming, even gardening or dancing. So we're trying to follow give people, again, choice and opportunity to engage in something that they enjoy doing or they want to commit to it, and then we make a game of it, make it really fun and engaging. So I created this program for Graham last summer, and and then that's rolled out. So that's been rolled out to almost 40 businesses across this year. It's just been a real pleasure and joy to kind of see the uptake on it and see people benefiting from it. Then yes, look, I'm personally looking forward to 2021 and taking that product further on. And I would, if anyone is interested to learn a bit more about it, please do get in touch, and I can explain more. But it's had really positive benefits from people in terms of their work-life balance, their stress, their resilience, their recovery. Everything is achieved, particularly when you do physical activity really well.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm just looking now, we've no further open questions. I don't know whether maybe you want to finish up with the slides, and then we could see if people want to have a think about whether there's any question they would like to ask directly themselves, or any final questions they want to pop into the Q&A, and we could take those just at the end.
Okay. I'm just thinking of what slides are ahead here. So we've got a wee bit about sleep hygiene. I might just a few slides here to get to a point. So yeah, here's my challenge that I was going to talk about, but I'll maybe just bounce to here and just finish up today's talk with a bit of sleep hygiene. So it's just some tips, some rules to follow. So I've said it several times this morning already, but getting outside and connecting with loved ones, getting a bit of physical activity outdoors, and connecting with the Zeitgeibers and getting fresh air and daylight, and forming good connections with your loved ones, and is always a positive thing. I mentioned the vagus nerve. So to activate that vagus nerve and get more green in your day, so throughout the night or just in moments through the day, is just to stop, slow down, and breathe. So following the various breathing techniques and patterns that exist out there. An obvious, a good one would be 7-4-7, where you inhale, length, pause, and then exhale to kind of really ignite the parasympathetic system. I've heard a term was coined a couple of weeks back to me that I'm going to pinch. That's called the screen life balance. We have to be cautious about the volume of time we spend on screens. There's more video calls that we're doing. We're having to digitally communicate a lot more, so we just have to be cautious of that. But when I put this slide up, I always encourage people to think about learn how to say no statements. So when is enough, and when is it going? What is the line in your day where it's just gone over too much, and you shouldn't be doing what you're doing past that time of day? Recovery time is crucial. Start to commit towards it, and any time not only screens is unhealthy, but also the content and the disturbance from that. Whatever you do, don't end up bringing it to bed. So keep your bedroom tech free, and avoid this kind of behavior that many of us are trapped in because of the addiction we have with our devices. And we've seen from the HRV reports about the impact of alcohol, and be cautious about how much you take and what it will do to your sleep, but also the timing that you take from. So if you think of a unit of alcohol will need an hour to process. So if you can end drinking sooner in the evening rather than later, right? You don't try to avoid drinking close to bedtime, where you go to bed and the work still has to be done. Try to end your drinking so that your body can start to at least process it before bedtime, and supplement with water. Then obviously frequency as well. Try not to have more than, say, 2 nights in a row. Try to limit how frequently you drink too. Caffeine. We don't want to avoid that caffeine chase, the fatigue mask, and the challenges that exist from consuming too much alcohol and the dependency that it can, or too much caffeine and the dependency that it can generate. Commit to some downtime, me time. It might be reading a book, not in a digital era, but actually an old book with physical touch is really critically important. for us to unwind, find a cozy place in the house, not necessarily the bedroom, to perform some this activity. Zone out, maybe put on some classical music or some in the background whenever you're cooking meals, or just in generally at the end of the day, sort of get some soft, gentle music, relaxation, peaceful piano, that type of music in the house, just to help alleviate some stress, or tune into some podcasts or listen to some audiobooks that help distract, and you close your eyes and you do your deep breathing while you're tuning into this. Good time of year to perform the Danish hygge, so getting nice and cozy, cup of tea, and feeling nice and warm. Of course, if this is close to bedtime, that tea should be maybe a herbal, so that we're not loading up with caffeine. Positive distractions, again, this will help with the breathing and the kind of mindfulness, but you want to, like a jigsaw or Lego or coloring in or knitting, or any sort of hobby that you enjoy and you'll commit some time to. And again, this is a great way to switch off from the busyness of life, and to sort of promote that recovery time. For people who are anxious, good to journal, good to-do list. 3 good things you've done today, 5 things that need to be achieved in the next week. Those kind of weekly reflections, or anything at all that kind of puts anxiety away. So once you've jotted things down, you can close the book, and that's done. That's just it's a movement that happens, a moment that helps you disengage. Your own personal vision, strategy, mission. This is what gets you out of bed in the morning, and having good knowledge of what you're trying to achieve in life. Having a personal mission statement. I would encourage you over Christmas time to write a vision or a mission statement for yourself for 2021. What's the year going to look like? What do you want to try and achieve? What energizes you? What gets you out of bed? Because ultimately, that's going to help you maintain better stress recovery balance, and lead to less sleep disturbances as well. This is a good one. How many of you on the call have actually really had been sore from laughing this year? A sore face or sore ribs or something, some sort of laughing episode that's just maybe been uncontrollable. Now, laughing is almost the same benefits, in fact, probably almost identical benefits to exercise, the rush of endorphins, but laughter is a fantastic way to de-stress, but to promote sleep. So having a good rip-roaring genuine laugh is a good thing. Things like laugh worth doing for sure. It has excellent health benefits, and I would encourage it. A bedtime routine. So maybe this is some part of my routine. Is the last thing I do is having brush my teeth, 2 minutes, bit of a how today go, what have I got to do tomorrow. By the time that's finished, I am done. There's nothing else left for me to do. So I get into a dark room and fall asleep straight after this. This is the last event of the day, is kind of what this represents. Tart cherry juice is something we've given athletes for a long time. It's helped promote recovery. So these are good at promoting melatonin and helping people sleep longer. So insomniacs sleep for about an hour and a half longer per evening whenever they're consuming cherries or tart cherry juice, particularly with an evening meal. And then snacking on almonds. Almonds are kind of high with tryptophan, and can be, again, helpful for producing melatonin. So that's a good snack to graze on, as long as you don't have a nut allergy. And magnesium, try to get more magnesium in our diet through green leafy vegetables, avocados, spinach, but also then a good soak in the bath with Epsom salts is another great way to unwind and promote de-stress and better recovery. So worth a go. And then just generally try and be positive with your thinking. The more negative you are, the more fatigued you'll feel. The more it'll drain you, and the more you'll drain others. So try and be more positive with your own thinking and with your attitude and how you interact with everyone else. It's uplifting and energizing. The the Take Five Steps to Wellbeing is another great thing to tune into. So try and look at that resource. So we got connection, be active, taking notice, giving, keep learning. These are the things that I've been sharing as well. And then 2 books. One's a spiritual book. It's by John Bloomfield. It's the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Is something that is well worth a read if you're very busy and you need to kind of make a few changes in life. I would encourage a read or a listen to that. And then I'm quite like this book, The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace, where you learn, particularly as we're disconnected, we learn how to actually speak the language of appreciation for our teams and our colleagues. Some people will like a positive word said to them. Some people will like a gift sent to them. Some people might like an act of service, or unfortunately the handshake or the pat on the back. People don't kind of get much, but other people just like a bit of quality time given to them as well. So there's 5 languages that are really well worth investigating, particularly if you want to feel your colleagues feel appreciated, because feeling appreciated will lead to kind of more endurance, I think, and more loyalty, more just more sustainability, I think. So that's definitely worth looking into. I think this is my final slide, just kind of recapping on 10 tips to better battery life. So that good purpose, that reason to get out of bed, look after yourself in terms of your health, your size, your shape, your BMI. Boosting your fitness, cardiovascular fitness, or strength fitness, strength and flexibility. These are great ways to improve how well you recover. Generally sit less and move more. So don't be too sedentary. Be careful with your time, and how you donate that time is a vital one. So time is a finite resource, and how we allocate it is going to determine how much our workload is, or our volume of load throughout the day. Eating a rainbow, so lots of color in your meals, lots of natural foods and natural colors, plenty of greens and oranges and reds and yellows. Drink plenty of water. See stress as positive. Remember that learning impact. Have loads more fun. Try to have more fun in life. Try that laughter thing. Over Christmas, I'll challenge you to making sure that you have your face gets sore at least once from laughter. There might be silly games that you don't want to do. Give it a go. You never know, it might be good. And then let things go. Accept those things you cannot change. This is me. If you like, you can look me up or keep in touch. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can use that QR code to reach me. And then the support to perform, the website here, you can connect to me through here, and you can discover all the different things that we do. And you can take this Perform Q test that we've created, just to kind of give you some direction on your potential. So I'll come back to this one, and I'll leave it there, Ashley, if there's anything else to be covered.
Hi, can I say thank you so much? I just find that so interesting, and you've given us so many practical tips as well. And with the pandemic this year, I think most people have probably found themselves fatigued in ways that they never thought possible. But it's really heartening to know that there's so many things that you can do, steps that you can take, even small steps, and that people are also finding workarounds. I love the idea that you mentioned about the fake commute. I think that's brilliant. Why not? I just mentioning back as well to the charts that you showed at the beginning. I find that fascinating. That you actually get used to the level of tiredness and don't realize that it's a dangerous level, and that there's that underestimation of risk that comes with it. I think that's quite a stark thing for companies to think about from a safety perspective. And I suppose one question I thought maybe we could round off on, unless there's anything else that comes in, is if there's a safety professional here today, what do you think they could go back to their company tomorrow and say, how are we going to tackle this issue of fatigue? What would be the sort of starting points? Would you start with a sort of an analysis or a survey of your workforce? Would you put a policy in place? Would you run a program, that you were sort of mentioning, performance, productivity, resilience? What would be your tips for sort of starting that conversation, I guess, internally?
Yeah, It's really, really good question. Look, thanks, Ashley. It's nice to kind of have that all recap back. I really enjoyed this morning and talking about this topic. Just one thing I'd be cautious about is if you pick a scab, expect it to bleed. That's maybe one thing I'd be cautious about. If you go digging for fatigue and trying to get insights there, then you are pretty much going to be expected to do something about it. Language, I said earlier, I think is really important when you if you go looking for things like fatigue or stress, then there's maybe a negative connotation, negative association straight away that you're looking at. That your reliability of responses as well might be hindered. It's perhaps accepting that stress and fatigue is present. It's unavoidable, so accept it's there. If it's safety sensitive work, it'd be good to try to dig deeper into what is the risk that's being generated from this. But another route to go down would be look at culture. So what is the culture of our organization and how much energy is in our staff? You might see some evidence in terms of presenteeism, productivity or absenteeism figures, and how committed are staff to their work and to their how energized are they whenever they are performing their jobs. So you can look at that job performance and approach, and then make assumptions around, well, stress and fatigue are probably playing a big part of this. But you could just jump straight to solutions where you go, right, let's look at putting in some sort of programs that provide the staff with options and confidentiality in a lot of cases actually, and so that people can kind of self-help a little bit, or take part in something that's fun and challenging and engaging and really positive. Certainly from the physical activity challenge that I've done, the feedback from staff where this has been brilliant for morale. It's given so much energy. It's been great for communication and getting to know each other, getting to know people on a different level. So I would really encourage sort of looking at those types of solutions straight away, because they're absolutely needed without having to go digging for.
It's a very good point. Yeah.
Do we need this? Do we need this or not? That it's absolutely important, imperative that you take care. But I think where I see it getting wrong is where companies throw well-being at their staff, and kind of it's here it is, if you take it or leave it. Don't say we didn't do anything for you, and we've done our part. Now it's your turn to do your part. I think that can lead to a culture of give take. So the staff kind of see right through that and will go, well, you know what? If you're gonna put all this great stuff on for us to do, I can take time off work and I'll go and I'll consume whatever you're going to give me, and I'll take it all day long. But it might not necessarily change my commitment. So you got to get it right to go, well, the programs that you get, whatever you implement actually creates a give culture. So we'll do this for you if you do that. If you do something, if you keep going for us, if you give us your best every day, ideally that's where you get the win-wins, and you get then the positive ROI from program implementation, rather than just sort of throwing a bag of tools out there and hoping that somebody's going to benefit from it. I think that's where our company's really been all about, getting to understand company culture, what they're trying to achieve, and designing appropriate solutions that really work for their staff and for the culture of that company, and what the maximum uptake is going to be, and what sort of positive effect it's going to have for majority of people. So that's always been our approach, rather than sort of, I know what you need, you should do this, and not have any kind of understanding of what life is like inside that organization sometimes.
Yeah, so positivity and engagement then, as much as possible through the process.
Yeah. I think when you also involve staff in the process, certainly a certain level of staff, then you get more buy-in too.
Yeah, absolutely.
They got to be part of the process.
I'm just going to check down to see if we've got any attendees that want to ask any questions. I think we're probably, no, there's nothing else there. There was one other question in the Q&A, and it was just to do with the questions that you had up on the screen before. The person who asked the question had wanted to get a screenshot of those questions and missed some of them. So I don't know whether we are going to be putting the podcast out. I don't know whether it's easy for you to share those again, or whether we will be obviously sharing the podcast again. And if that person wants to get in touch with Ernie, we could always get some details maybe of the questions to them. Maybe that's the best way.
Actually, could I come in and answer that? And I've clearly seen that. What I'll do is the questions that have come in, I'll list those as part of when we put the webcast online. Now that came in from an anonymous attendee. If the attendee wants that quicker, because it usually takes me 3 or 4 days to get the thing up. If they want the series of questions quicker, just send me an email to the info@nisg.org.uk, and I'll pass the questions through to them.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Ernie. I think that's probably everything as far as the questions go, and I'm conscious obviously of time as well. So I'm going to say just a massive thank you for your time this morning and such good information. So thank you very much on behalf of the group. We appreciated having you to speak this morning. Just a couple of final points before we sign off. I was just going to mention our John Gordon Award. We'll be sending around a little bit more information about that at the beginning of 2021 again. But it was just to remind you to start having a think about anyone within your organisation who has gone above and beyond in the pursuit of good health and safety in the last year. So please do start to have a think if you've got any nominations that you would like to make at the beginning of 2021. And that's everything really. So I just wanted to say thank you all very much for watching. I hope everyone has a great Christmas and New Year period. Please do stay safe, and we'll look forward to returning in 2021. Thanks very much.